Hello and welcome to Stay in Your Lane, or as it is this week, Stay in Your Mika, a show where we talk about Serial Experiments Lane. I am your host, Lokomasi. With me are my lovely co-host, Fafner Masamune.
Alright, so when we go from one lane personality in the body to another, that's called interlaner travel. Just update your notes, people.
Alice.
Um, I'm still here because to prove that Alice is the best character in this show.
And Jenner.
Hey, it's me. We've missed 3 episodes in a row that we could have been doing because I've been asleep. I'm fucking what is it? It's not Rumpelstiltskin who sleeps for
It's Rip Van Winkle.
I fucking Rip Van Winkled on my friends for fucking 3 weeks.
You slept through the whole Revolutionary War.
I did.
If I were Jenner, I would just drink a walnut liqueur without passing out.
Okay, first of all, you don't know how much walnut liqueur I drank. I think you would have passed out if you had drank as much walnut liqueur as I did. I think Jeff would have passed out if he drank as much walnut liqueur as I did.
Breadmaster would have been fine, but you know.
Breadmaster would have been fine, but Breadmaster isn't here anymore. I got one of those, look, this is the podcast right now, folks. This is the story before we begin the
Welcome to
episode.
Jenner's vlog.
Yep. I got one of those, big Crown Royal-sized carafes, I don't know how that word is actually pronounced, of walnut liquor. And I drank that entire fucking thing with some homemade eggnog to, water, quote-unquote, water it down. And then
you need a lot of water for that.
And then I had 2 chicken breasts, because I love breasts, ladies, wink. And a bunch of mashed potatoes, because carbs, bitch. And some collard greens. And then I was like, oh, it's 8 something. I can't see the clock because my glasses fell off somewhere. I'm gonna message my friends and tell them bad news. I might pass out. And then literally the second I hit the enter button, I was out.
Just fell asleep on the enter key.
I'm lucky I got that enter key clicked because literally I don't remember a moment from making sure I clicked enter to waking up set 12 hours later.
Jesus Christ.
With a hangover.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't have a chance to get water, that'll happen.
I did not have a chance to get water.
This week, we are covering Layer 05, Distortion.
Yeah, so anyway, this episode's fucked up.
Speaking of distortion, apparently my spouse brought me water. Around 2 o'clock in the morning. And he even put the glass of water next to where the end table I was sleeping near. But I just, did not even acknowledge his existence. According to him,
That's dissociating.
I babbled some nonsense that he didn't understand. He just shuffled away because I'm mad at him for reasons that I'm not going to get into on the podcast. And then I don't even remember being conscious for this, but I believe him. But I know it's true, at least partially true, because I did wake up to a cup of water on my head table. Okay, so, episode 05, speaking of disassociating, I left my body. It's like that Winnie the Pooh gif.
We start with the same opening shot as always. This time the monologue says, "If you can hear it, it is speaking to you, and if you can see it, then it is yours." After that we cut to a different monologue, this time over shots of people walking around the streets of Tokyo. I think they're in Tokyo. They mentioned Shibuya at some point.
Somewhere in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
A Japanese city.
The monologue is going on about mankind and evolution. It says the phrase, "Man is an absurd creature clinging to the flesh that no longer evolves, but mankind has finally created an exit whereby he may escape, the wired." During this monologue, which seems to be totally removed from everything else in the episode, Lain suddenly stops, looks to the camera, and starts talking to the person monologuing. You're going to say something, Fefner?
Probably not the most interesting thing of note, but the subversion used the phrase neoteny. Neoteny? Anyway, to describe the fact that man's no longer able to evolve, which
I
basically means
forgot to look that up.
they slowed the fuck down. We're not doing it
Oh.
anymore.
I'm just thinking like this whole like it's yours thing from the beginning is very manifest destiny. Destiny-y? There we go. It's this reeks of manifest destiny.
Other people have things, but what if it was my things instead?
You own this?
I own this.
But after that short scene with Lain, we then cut to Mika. There's a reason I referred to this as Stay in Your Mika this week. This week's episode is mostly about Mika. I don't want to read too much into stuff that may or may not be there, but we're totally seeing the aftermath of a one-night stand, right?
I mean,
Mika's totally walking away from somebody that she just
yeah,
wants.
I mean, it's there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Normally I'm the horny one, but I told y'all episode 1 I was gonna try to not be. I was gonna be put the most innocuous interpretation, and I gave up that bit before the first episode even ended. I'm getting back on the rails. No, look, this was just a fun, cute sleepover where they watched, I don't know, Cartoon Network, and nothing untoward happened.
Oh, they fucking.
When I call it in Lancer, no, this was a platonic, heterosexual, co-sleeping arrangement.
Something I wanted to point out about this scene is that the boy tries to ask Mika out on a further date just to spend more time with her, and Mika doesn't respond at all, but he doesn't seem particularly upset.
Again, yet another example of everyone in this show feels completely disconnected from each other.
It's such a weird response. Because, if he was upset, that'd be one thing. And if he was explicitly okay with it, that would be one thing. But he just doesn't respond at all. It's dude, pay attention. Things are happening.
Oh well, moving on.
The last thing we see with Mika before we cut away from her for a bit is there is apparently a car accident. Somebody is struck by a car. Mika turns around, makes sure that it happened, and then walks away without being very concerned about it.
There's just a car accident. We all knew it would happen watching that intro again and again. I told you that car was moving weird. Some people just don't want to have any sort of trauma on a given day.
After this, we move to one of the bits, which I like to call Lain's story time. These are all very similarly shot scenes. They open with a close-up of Lain and a close-up of the speaker. In this case, it is one of Lain's dolls. Lain asks to hear a story. The doll says, "What type of story?" And Lain says, "Tell me something that I don't know." And the doll says that there is nothing that Lain does not know. I've, in a manner of speaking, played the PlayStation game. And one of the things that they hammer on more in there that they don't hammer on in the show is the idea of dolls and toys being extensions of the self. So I think what the doll is saying isn't that, there is nothing in this world that you don't know. It's more there's nothing in my world that you don't know. I'm a doll. I can only say things that you tell me. I only know what you know, Lain.
Alright, quick aside, there's a game.
Oh yeah, there is a weird visual novel-ass game.
Alright, visual novel. That works more than I think anything else, honestly.
It's on the PlayStation 1. I've actually talked about this with you. Is everyone here familiar with the game Her Story?
Yeah.
I have heard.
It plays like that.
I've heard tale of the game Her Story, but I have never played it, and maybe I should. But Voidburger,
No.
who I respect somewhat, and our taste is somewhat similar, went off on a tear about this game, and it made me so do not want to, because her tweet storm was basically, don't play this game, don't even think about this game, just forget this game ever existed. Let us just memory hold this game out of existence. Maybe if we wish hard enough, we can planescape torment this thing into having never been even made in the first place. And I was like, okay, Voidburger, I will not, because if you're gonna be that inflammatory about this, it's probably It'd be like if I had done that, right? Y'all would be like, let's never touch that, right?
Yeah,
It sure is a
not liking
thing.
the author is kind of vindicating because people are like, oh yeah, these games are great. And I'm like, this guy fucking sucks at writing characters, and that's problem number one.
Mm-hmm.
What were you gonna say, Alice?
I'm just saying, her story, it sure is a game, and honestly, it does give me Lain vibes. For not the reasons you'd expect. It's kind of the weird disconnection of all the parts to each other, kind of like how a lot of Lain is just utterly disconnected from itself.
Yeah, well, the difference is Lain does that on purpose. But yes, Okay, so I don't want to go too off on the game. I might save that for the final episode, but I do have to talk about the creators didn't label the game as a visual novel. They labeled it as psycho stretchwear.
What? What does that mean?
I don't know either. I have no idea.
Hey, OP, what the fuck?
The game is very interesting. It goes in a very different direction. You kind of have to, like... I feel like if you experience one, experiencing the other will help you understand the first one you watched. But I don't want to get too bogged down by talking about the game.
Yeah.
This was just one of the things that, like, the game went further in on this. The show just kind of pays lip service to it. Instead, the doll goes on about prophecies. She says, before anything can happen, it is prophesied. This is another thing that I think they're using, like, obtuse language to explain cause and effect. Before anything can happen, something has to make it happen. You wouldn't necessarily call that a prophecy, but you could understand why somebody else would.
This is something that, like, physicists wrestle with a lot. Is like, force doesn't come from nowhere. In order for an action to be taken, there must be a force to create the action. But, like, we just do thing, neurons spark, but something makes that spark. And then something makes that spark. All the way back. And, like, what started this perpetual motion? And it's just like, buddy, who fucking cares? Go crank one out. Go crank one out to porn and take a nap. It's fine. But yeah, it's like, who jump-started the car, right? Who gave the car that first push that sent this fucking piece of shit down? Like, here we are now. God knows how many years from that first push, right? God knows how much time has passed. Who did that? Who started that shit? Because that's how actions and reactions work. Is somebody had to do that first thing or something. It's like, is this proof of God? No, I mean, maybe, but also, fuck off. Anyway, back to you.
The thing that this whole conversation reminded me of was the thought experiment Laplace's Demon, which I've explained to definitely Fafner, probably you, Jenner, and probably not you, Alice, but you probably already know.
Whose demon?
Laplace.
I'm not sure I do.
So the idea behind Laplace's Demon is that the future and the past can both be interpolated from the present. So the more you know about the present, the more you know about the past and the future. So if a demon, or an intelligence as Laplace actually puts it, can learn everything about any given moment in time, they would therefore necessarily know everything about the future and the past.
That's the power of my stand.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. I'm going to be frank. I've been saying this as Laplace in my head because I'm stupid.
No, it shows up in a lot of Japanese media, but they will, like, use the plus part. Like, it shows up in Gundam Unicorn, I think, and it's rendered as LA and a plus sign. So I'm assuming it's pronounced Laplace. You may be right, though.
Los Angeles Plus?
No, like I was saying Laplace.
Yeah, and that might be right. I don't know.
Who knows?
Laplace, probably.
Yeah, he'd probably know. But this, I think, is what the doll is talking about. It's weird when you consider, like, the doll's already said, Lain, I don't know anything you don't know, but seems to be talking about something that Lain doesn't know.
But does she not know it? Because it occurs to me that, like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to kind of come to the conclusion that everything is caused by another thing. and that thing was caused by another thing, and so on forever until
Yeah.
infinity. Because, like, we've kind of had this off and on as a thing that people have brought up a bunch of times.
Yeah, and I think that this is kind of what's happening. Is this is a representation of Lain figuring something out on her own. But we also see where her knowledge stops because she says, "Who makes the prophecies?" As in, like, who is causing these things to happen? And then the doll doesn't answer. But after this, we get a cut to a news report. The news report talks about the traffic intersystem is busted and causing problems. This includes like traffic signs as in stoplights, signs as in the electronic signs, and self-driving cars. So this is as bad as it could possibly be. This is a situation where, like, yeah, I'm not stepping outside.
Yeah. Yep.
If these many things are going wrong, I'm just gonna stay home.
Moving to the countryside now. Don't want to see any roads. Also, it is Shibuya.
Yeah, that's what I thought they said Shibuya at some point in this
Yep.
episode, which is why I thought they
They
were in
do.
Tokyo.
Yeah,
I'm looking through the scene, they said
tell. I
Shibuya.
could actually tell this was Shibuya, even with the changed up, like futuristic kind of off things, because like this that square, like that road crossing, is a pretty like emblematic scene in Shibuya. A lot of like animators and such draw it. So even though they've like distorted it and messed it up a little, like that is so obviously Shibuya. You could just like go to that area and you could see it. As the foremost expert on Japan, as somebody who has been to it 2 whole times. Yeah, I've been to Shibuya. It's one of my spouse's favorite areas in Japan. And I've been to this square, the square that they reference here. So yeah, I mean, like, Japanese people just know it. So yeah.
It's just like Persona 5.
Hashtag not all Japanese people. But actually, maybe, I don't know. I can't speak for I don't know, I cannot speak for Japanese people.
We get a shot of Lain walking around Shibuya with her head down. Somebody hands her tissues. Then we cut to Mika, who also receives tissues. Shortly after she gets these, fucking Taro shows up, awful child, asks, "Is it okay if I flirt with you?" and then spills his coffee on her. It's just a fucking combo of shitty interactions with this child.
Why are you so bad, child? Get a hobby.
I don't, like, actively dislike children at all, really, but, like, I want to fucking smack this kid. I hate this child. Mika goes to wipe the coffee off of her sleeve and sees the message that's supposed to be on the tissues, but instead of an advertisement, it says, "The other side is overcrowded. The dead will have nowhere to go."
I really don't know what this company's aiming for, honestly.
So cremate your loved ones today.
Damn, that is some really cryptic shit.
Can you imagine, though, if this was just, like, a fucking crematorium advertising or something? Like, the graveyards are too overcrowded.
So yeah, whether it's a terrible advertisement or just an ominous message, if I got a tissue with this on it, I would just go straight home. I'm done.
I remember when I was watching this episode, I told y'all that story about how on our honeymoon, my spouse and I went to Japan. And I had caught a pretty nasty, like, congestion, snotty nightmare cold just before our honeymoon, but we were not going to call off our honeymoon because we had to set this, like, in order to go to Japan, we had to, like, organize it, like, 6 months in advance. It's like canceling it last second just because I got a cold would be dumb. So yeah, and getting the time off, and it was just, yeah, I'm just gonna power through it, right? But, like, I ran out of tissues on the plane because it was like a 14-hour plane ride. And I was just like, what am I gonna do? We're gonna have to stop off at a convenience store and pick up more tissue when we get to Japan. And my spouse just looked at me because he has been to Japan many times. This is not a flex. This is just me telling a story, please, I swear. And he said, don't worry about it. We will get some basically the moment we get off the plane. And I was like, what? Like, from, like, a convenience store just, like, right up in the airport? And he's like, just wait. I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, I'm, like, snot dribbling my nose, whatever. I'm miserable. But so we get off the plane eventually, and I'm, like, dying. Like, snot everywhere. And he was not joking. Like, we took, like, 5 steps off the plane. We hadn't even completely left the airport yet, and somebody just walked up to us and handed us a thing of tissues, just like in this show.
Mm-hmm.
And he just took it and handed it to me. And I was like, oh, thanks. Because I didn't even realize I was so, like, sick in head fog. And they offered it to me, not to him, because my spouse is not white. But I didn't recognize that this was a thing that was happening to me in the moment.
Okay.
So, yeah, but yeah. He
I was going to point out,
yeah.
like, your job is to hand out tissues. You see somebody snotting all over the place and you don't give it to her? What the fuck?
Yeah, but I was, like, not reaching for it. I was, like, my brain was not processing that this was the thing that was occurring to me. So my spouse had to take it and hand it to me, like, put it in my hands and close my hands over it. Like, I was, like, I don't know. Dumb. And so I like, oh, cool, and like, oh, wow, tissue, that was really easy. And he's like, yeah. And I just look at the person, I'm like, can I have another one? And they do not speak English, so they don't understand me. So my spouse has to translate for me, embarrassed. And they do. They hand me a second thing of tissue, and I'm like, awesome. And I thank them. I say arigato, and he's like, please stop. And we get to the hotel, and that's the end of the story. Thanks.
I just can only imagine you're one of these people whose job is to hand out tissues, and you see somebody with a cold, you're like, yes, finally.
Finally. Well, it's like, my spouse explained it to me, like, you hand people out advertisements, like flyers and whatever here in the States, they probably just throw them out. Most people do. Right? Like, you hand somebody a flyer for your cool band recital, right? For your awesome band, obscure shit. We slap. You should find us on SoundCloud, right? People just throw that shit out. What Japanese people found is we could just buy some tissue paper and we could put our ad in the tissues. We can give you something kind of useful, right? In connection with the ad, and then you won't just immediately throw it out. You'll at least use the tissue and you'll look at the ad a couple times before you can get to a place where you can throw it out. Because another thing about Japan, folks, there are very, 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 very few outdoor trash bins anywhere in Japan. We looked. I had to just basically carry. A lot of Japanese people do. They just carry bags on them, like, to put their trash in, because there just are no trash cans in Japan that I could find. So you just have to, like, take them home and then throw them out at home. And that means, like, giving you a useful ad, you're just, like, stuck with that for God knows how long, the entire fucking day, until you can take the ad out of the tissue and throw it away. So yeah, it's diabolical. Yeah. Also, no water fountains. Anyway, I'm done now.
The U.S. also had a similar idea of printing advertisements on the back of useful things, but for whatever reason, it was matchbooks, and once smoking took a nosedive, the companies never moved on to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really weird. Fucking, we're in capitalism's death grip, and yet, this is the one avenue they haven't advertised in.
And, like, honestly, I wouldn't mind never having to pay for tissues again.
Mm-hmm.
I guess part of it is that, like, in general, we just don't hand things to strangers on the streets as much in the U.S.
Yeah.
You'd have to get it, like, from a restaurant, like the old matchbooks.
Nobody chucks a box of Kleenex at you on the streets.
Hey, catch, loser! Anyways, Mika dismisses the tissue as just being a weird prank. But then she looks over and sees Lain standing in the middle of the road muttering to herself. She's saying over and over again, everyone gets connected, everyone gets connected, everyone gets connected. While cars are just flying past her. Mika is definitely concerned. She's like, what the hell? Why is my little sister out in the middle of the road? But she's not like, what the hell? My little sister's out in the middle of the road. She's just kind of like, oh, that's weird. Hope she doesn't get hurt. And then leaves.
It's kind of like she almost... I feel like it's her whole thing about Lain is that Lain's weirdness is something that she just can't stick to. Like, she sees it, and she's able to recognize that it is weird, but she isn't able to, like... her brain, like, slides off of it. Because it's like, okay, whatever. Until it's forced to pay attention.
You know how in sitcoms there'll be the wacky side character that does the wacky hijinks plots? and the boring main characters will run into them and just kind of ignore what's going on. Lain, what I'm saying is that Lain is basically Kramer from Seinfeld.
Lain is Kramer from Seinfeld. I'm down with that.
Jerry, you're never gonna believe this. I've hacked all the traffic in Japan.
You're right. I don't believe it.
I can't believe this bit is happening in front of me. I should have slept through this week too.
You're not excited for the Seinfeld Lain crossover?
Featuring Lain as every character.
Kramer bursts into the apartment. You'll never believe this, but I found this great way of making money quick called OnlyFans.
Wow.
It would have been a better show today. Continuing.
Anyway, I guess all the other Lanes that aren't currently in the Lain body are just on the set of Seinfeld.
Look, hear me out, alright?
I mean, it makes as much sense as anything else they could be doing.
I have no idea how many lanes there are, but do you think each of them can play a different instrument and Lain could just start a band that's just all lanes?
Hello, we're Lain in the Lanes.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to play for this our song for you.
How come your Lane gets to be in the band name?
They all have to spell Lain differently.
Because I'm the Lane who started this.
There, every once in a while, they'll have Nathan Lane on stage just to fuck with people.
No.
Anyways, I did want to mention, I think the implication behind Lane's muttering is that, at the very least, the creators want the audience to think that Lain is hacking the traffic system and knows that she won't be hurt because she can just send the cars away from her. Because she is muttering her "everyone gets connected" mantra, which is related to her like being connected to the wire and everything like that.
This is reminding me a little bit of the remake of The Italian Job with Seth Green. It's actually a pretty decent remake, even though it had Mark Wahlberg in it. Where Seth Green, who is the hacker character, because Seth Green is typecast, hacks all the streetlights in that movie. And that's not actually a thing you can do in real life. And that ends my portion, my very, very helpful contribution to this podcast for this section.
Anyways, once Mika turns away from her little sister, who, for all she knows, is about to be splattered against the ground by a 70-mile-per-hour car. When she turns around, she sees on the jumbo screen Lain, who is not wearing any clothes. It's not explicit nudity. It's good old anime symbolic nudity.
Most of, the screen is just mostly taken up by her face. I didn't even notice she didn't have clothes.
Yeah, her big old eyes.
I've seen this episode multiple times. I was eventually going to notice.
The thing is, if they don't, I learned from Adolescence of Utena, if you don't show nipples, it's not naked. We're good.
It's true.
Also, I feel like this Lain is in a completely different art style. Her outline is thicker. Like, she's a 90s Western cartoon character. But after that, we cut from one close-up of Lain to another close-up of Lain because it's time for Lain Storytime Redux. This time, there is a weird mask that Lain has, I guess. I guess this is another one of her toys.
And what we got here is the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Serial Experiments Lain crossover that we've all been waiting for. I want to say something really quick before I hand it back off to you. Which is, I was just thinking as I was about to make this joke about Drawfee, the Drawfee people that we watch sometimes, and how they'll say things that are topical in the episode as they improv so that they can put those things in the tags for the algorithm so their videos will go viral. But instead of doing that, we are mentioning completely arbitrary, off-the-wall, antiquated, ancient shit that nobody's gonna be fucking searching for. And these podcasts are gonna be in the fucking core of the earth as far as the fucking algorithm is concerned, because I'm talking
People
about...
will always be searching for JoJo.
Okay, yeah, we got JoJo. We got JoJo. But wait, I'm going to be talking about The Wire, the show, here as a bit in about 10 minutes. So, keep going.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe the Part 6 anime is going to get announced soon. Maybe they'll finally figure out how the fuck to get around Bohemian Rhapsody.
Let's just say a bunch
Anyways.
of trending things. What's been trending on social media lately? So
I don't want to know. I don't care about social media trends anymore.
I'm not cool. I don't fucking know.
So Loka can put those in the tags like 5 months from now when we're finally done with this, and they won't even be relevant anymore.
I'm just gonna look at like what's trending the most on YouTube that week and put it in the tags.
Yeah,
as if it's
exactly.
not
Even if
mentioned
we
in the
don't,
video.
even if we don't
Who's
mention
gonna
it,
report me?
it's good check. Okay,
All right, so
sorry,
let's see
go
what's
on.
going to be in the public sphere 5 months from now. Oh, Guillotine 2021. Guillotine 2021. I want to remain hopeful.
Yeah, Guillotine 2021, sure. Okay, what else? What else 5 months from now? Alice, go. One thing that we could tag on this episode.
I genuinely
Alice-
don't know.
I think Alice lost track of the bit a while ago.
I'm gonna put in mend the schism because that's been on my mind lately. That's just gonna trend 5 months from now. People are going to finally demand that the schism between Orthodox Christianity and Catholic Christianity be mended.
Gonna fucking tag this video. Shadow is a Catholic. Shadow is Orthodox.
I'm so
Anyways.
lost.
Okay, I handed off.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always lost. Anyways.
My bit is done for now.
The mask keeps is talking about prophecies just like the doll. But he's talking. Okay, I'm just gonna write down the two things that I wrote. I'm going to repeat the two things that I wrote down verbatim from his speech. If a prophecy is being fulfilled, then it is no longer a prophecy. History is not merely a series of points. They are connected by a line. You could say they are made to connect. Lain says, who connects them? And the mask doesn't answer. So combining this with the previous story time with the doll talking about prophecies, Lain is starting to understand that, like, things are happening for a reason, but she doesn't know what the reason is. The doll says, well, things happen because they just happen. Prophecies exist and then they happen. And then Lain says, well, who makes the prophecies? And then the mask comes in and says, okay, well, there are definitely people making the prophecies. There are the points are being connected by a line by someone. And then Lain says, well, who is that someone? And the mask doesn't answer. So Lain is basically going down an endless rabbit hole. She can keep finding new ways to rephrase the question, but she's never going to find an answer because she keeps talking to her dolls.
Yep. I'd also like to point out in this scene that the stuffed animals are back to being like ominously silhouetted.
They're like that more often than not.
I feel like the more passive a Lain, the more ominous they are.
We get a brief shot of Mika, and then back to the classroom. The classmates talk to Lain about hacking the traffic system in the jumbo screen. They seem like really impressed. I'm going to double check something. Okay, yeah, they're all super impressed. I was going to say, I think maybe Alice was not, but nope, Alice is smiling. Like, holy shit, Lain, I can't believe you did that. But in a happy way, which is weird because hacking the traffic killed at least one person.
Maybe it was just a self-driving car out driving itself and nobody died.
We saw somebody get hit earlier in the episode.
Maybe they did a cool flip off the car as they came into contact and it just cut away too fast.
I mean, those aren't like mutually exclusive.
And then he just dropped that can of tomato juice he was carrying for some reason.
Yeah, like, maybe you didn't see it, but he did have a parachute on, so he's fine.
I'm sorry, the image of somebody being struck by a car and then they just release a parachute and walk away perfectly fine is hilarious to me. That's a fucking JoJo stand if I ever heard one.
There's this problem, for lack of a better word. No, I'm good with this. In, I guess, like Russia and other countries like that, where people will pretend to have been hit by your car and then sue you so that they have money. And so basically, it happens so frequently that everybody in Russia has a dash cam. It's just like, do it, it's important. And now, like, there's whole sites dedicated just uploading footage from people's dash cams in Russia, where it's just like a nightmare because these people, like, rules don't mean anything in Russia. Rules are just like suggestions, maybe. They're optional. And Russian dashcam footage is just terrifying and makes my butthole clench up. But that's not my point. My point is that you'll see this where people will like intentionally walk up to the car and then like push themselves up against it and like do this whole thing where it looks like they pretend like they got hit. And all I'm saying is maybe that's what happened here in this episode.
Okay, fine. And maybe Lain didn't kill anyone.
Exactly.
The news report said that somebody died, but what the fuck do they know?
Exactly. This is all a conspiracy.
Unrelated issues.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the fact that Lain basically posted her news on the jumbo screen, and they're like, wow, that's really cool, Lain.
Lain did nothing wrong, is what I'm saying.
This whole scene is weird to me because like nothing about this is cool, and they're acting like it's cool. If a nude video of your 14-year-old friend ends up on the jumbo screen, you shouldn't go up to them and say like, "Wow, that's really cool."
Yeah, once again, I didn't notice the nudity, so like, I just figured, oh, they're talking about the hacking thing and the fact that she was up on the screen.
Maybe they didn't notice either. They're just gonna rewatch it and they're like, "Holy fuck!"
Dang, Lain posted her nudes on Twitter.com.
Damn.
And like,
Done talking about this scene.
Lain's like, hey, check out my sweet news. And she sends a link. It's just a link to her OnlyFans or whatever. And you go to click on it like, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. And you snap it and you click it. And it's like, because it's that year, yeah, folks. It's still not old yet to get rickrolled.
I don't think rickrolling ever really died.
I mean, it got killed for a while there when the Macy's Day Parade like brought on Rick Astley to literally physically in the flesh rickroll everybody in, what was it, 2011? But then it got revived like 3 years later.
And like in the spirit of it never went away. There were always harmless fake outs. One of my favorites is a fucking JoJo meme because of course it is. There is a character who has a special attack that only works if you try to block it first. And what he says when he does it is, "You fool, you fell for it." And somebody took a screen cap of him saying that, and we'll just link to it and say like, "Hey, check out this really cool video," and you click it, and it's just the guy going, "You fool, you fell for it." Anyways, after this scene, we actually stay with Lain's friend group, but not with Lain, because they're in a diner. Alice complains about getting spam email and has to explain what spam is, and also she's complaining about getting one spam email?
Precisely one spam email.
I mean,
Just
only
to,
getting
like,
one it's spam, but it's also kind of insulting, because they only bother to send you one.
It's just like, in case you didn't remember just how young the internet was at this point.
And back in the AOL days, which was a little bit after this, at this point, I remember I would log in and I'd have like 4 emails for dick enlargement, and I'm a girl, like what the hell?
But yeah, that's not the type of spam that Alice has gotten. Alice's spam message says, "Fulfill the prophecy."
Alice, I have urgent need of you. I am a prince from Nigeria. You know, Alice would fall for that. Alice would fall for the Nigerian prince because she's empathetic. Can you confirm, Alice expert, that Alice would fall for the Nigerian prince scam?
Have as my experience is that Alice's do in fact fall for scams. Yes, I can confirm this, and this is a scientific
Scientific fact
thing
here,
that I'm doing
folks.
there. I am literally doing a science.
Mm-hmm. This bit is fucking dumb. I'm sorry to keep going.
Anyways.
Oh, we're almost to the part where I'm going to talk about The Wire, the show, for about 7 minutes. We're almost there. Just warning you. Go on.
Show Alice says that she thinks the Knights are responsible for the spam and explains who the Knights are. She says something about it being a group that isn't really a group. That is, it has no central leadership. They just kind of agree to do the same bullshit.
That was damn prophetic. I'd just like to say
Yeah,
so.
I'm about to say, it's basically fucking anonymous.
Mm-hmm. They're literally doing it for the
I hesitate
lulz.
to say prophetic
They're doing it
because
for
I don't
the
remember what the
lulz.
timeline is, but
I forget when this show was made, but yeah, early.
98.
Yeah, wow. Just as the internet started to become a thing, yeah. Like, just as the internet went basically mainstream and became easily
that's the end of
accessible
that.
for most people.
I was gonna say, that's the end of that scene.
Mm-hmm. Here
We
we
get
go.
another Lain story time moment.
Here we go. Go ahead.
This time, it's with Mom.
Mm-hmm.
And once Lain sees that it is her mother in front of her, she... I don't want to say panicked, but she definitely reacts with fear. Her eyes widen and she is not happy to see her mother.
Does anybody want to go first before I do my bit?
All right.
I still
going to go to the next scene after this, or what?
I still have more of the scene to explain.
Okay, good.
Go on.
I'll wait
But
then.
Jenner can go out.
No, go ahead and finish the scene.
Lane's mom looks as if she is hanging from her neck. She is kind of floating off the ground, and her head is cracked to one side.
Not creepy at all, folks.
DCS finally got up to her for being such an awful mother. Like, we don't normally do this. We've decided to sentence you to death. There's also no prompting from Lain this time. Lane's mom just launches directly into the story. And the line I have written down from her is, "It is reasonable to see the wired as an upper layer of the real world. Physical reality is just a result of the wire, just as physical action is a result of the brain."
Okay, here we go. I'm going to interrupt now. Speaking of The Wired, I'm going to talk about The Wire. So, The Pager is the 5th episode of the first season of the HBO original series The Wire. The episode was written by Ed Burns from a story by David Simon and Ed Burns, and it was directed by Clark Johnson and originally aired on June 30th, 2002. In this episode, the plot starts with the police. Say Phelan, I hope that's how the name is pronounced, I have not seen The Wire because fuck paying for HBO, signs the wiretap affidavit for the clone of D'Angelo's pager, and Freeman finds that each pager message consists of a 7-digit phone number and a 2-digit identifying tag, and the numbers used do not work. So Freeman postulates that they are using a code to mask the numbers. The code is ultimately tracked by Prez, and Freeman visits Daniel's office and tells him that they need audio surveillance on the payphones surrounding the projects to make the case. He knows that Daniels is concerned about his career, but he insists that they put the cases first. Oh man, this is a lot easier for the people who did the Half-Life VR AI. Bubbles tells Greggs where to find Omar's van. She McNutty. What
Jenner.
the what?
Jenner, this has already been kind of a long episode with
Okay,
all the
let's
digressions.
go.
I'm not going to let you read the entire fucking episode summary from the fucking Wire.
My point is that the 5th episode of The Wire, the first season of The Wire, is all about being spying on people and being surveilled and it's look, that's where I was gonna go with this. Like, the whole bit was gonna get to this point where I was gonna make this grand sweeping statement about how The Wired and Serial Experiments Lain are the same show. But okay, we're good. Go on.
Because they shared one episode in the same show.
One episode that has a slightly adjacent, similar plot structure. Yes.
After Lane's mom sends Lain into an existential crisis by saying that the body only exists to verify the mind's existence, Lain says, "Are you really my mom?" And then in what is probably supposed to be a creepy moment, Lane's mom just slowly vanishes.
So yes, it is her mom.
Yeah, but when the three of us watched it, we couldn't stop laughing because it was just the most in-character thing she could have done.
Yeah,
She literally just evaporates out of caring.
The joke that Fefner just made is also the joke she made when that happened. Is that does in fact confirm that she is my mom. That is exactly what my mom does. Is just disappear. I thought it was really funny, so I'm glad that Fefner made it again.
We then cut to a dinner scene, not to be confused with a diner scene. Mika is still aloof and not really interacting, but it's in like a more sad way now. She's not trying to be cool. I think she's just confused and sad. She asks Lain if Lain was at Shibuya. Lain doesn't answer, and Mika doesn't push it. Which, just a super weird interaction all around.
I mean, if you've been living with Lain, would you?
It's only gonna get weirder. Because as Mika stares at her drink, it suddenly transitions to the Shibuya intersection. Mika is squatting in the middle of the road and cannot process like other people's faces or even existence. She just sees them as shadow blobs. She even to simply ask Lain if she was at Shibuya, and Lain has banished her to Shibuya.
Now you're disassociating.
Hey Mika, have you ever played The World Ends With You? If not, this is going to be a whole new experience for you. The shadow blobs transition again to the diner. Mika is bugging the fuck out. She is absolutely panicking. It makes me appreciate how well Lain took her dissociative episodes in the earlier episodes.
I mean, once you get used to disassociating, it's just like, this again. Mika is new to this, so she's having the usual freakouts that happen when you initially start disassociating. Before you get used to it, and it's become like an old buddy who shows up drunkenly to eat the food out of your fridge and just sit on your couch and you know, like channel surf on your television. Yeah, sorry, back to you.
Mika tries to open up her coffee that I guess she bought. We don't see it, and it's not clear if Mika even remembers buying it. But she knocks the coffee over. And there, Zach, can you see it in the coffee? It says, fulfill the prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
I may not have done that Deadly Premonition reference right, I'm sorry. Mika screams at this, blinks, and then it seems like hours have passed, as the diner is completely empty and the light out the window is completely different.
She didn't even have to drink way too much alcohol and eggnog for many, many hours to pass. It just happened. Sometimes time be like that, folks.
And also during this scene, Mika's eyes are drawn differently. They're drawn to look more like Lain's with the very small pupil and the massive irises.
What if Lain can like body jack people and like upload her consciousness into their bodies like Agent Smith?
I will not comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we then cut to Mika in a public bathroom. You know, it was weird when Lain was jumping around in the early episodes, but like this is so much more that I don't want to keep saying dissociating, disorienting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, whenever Lain did it, it just felt like, oh, that's just happening. And here it's like, all right, we've just jumped straight into the horror zone. I see.
Mika doesn't seem to know why, like where she is or why she's there, and she starts hearing sounds from one of the stalls. She goes to investigate. I should point out that the lights go out before she starts hearing sounds. She opens up one of the stalls, walks in, the lights come on. It looks like there's nothing there, but then the door slams behind her and she turns around and sees fulfill the prophecy written over and over and over again all over the door.
Ritual.
I'm sorry, I'm thrown off because I feel like there was a reason you said ritual and I can't remember why.
It's Silent Hill 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you also make that jump when we watched it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember by this point. It has been weeks.
I just had a memory of like, I feel like there's a reason she's saying ritual right now. What the hell is it? There was a reference here. It's gone now.
Gosh, we could have, like, here's the thing, Beth. I appreciate that you chose Silent Hill 2 instead, because you could have done, like, the Yahtzee game references instead. The Trilby series games where he writes the same thing over and over and over and over and over again for a while. You could have referenced that one instead. But here we are. We're not doing the It Hurts. We're doing the Silent Hill 2. We're good.
Before we have time to process what's even happening, it is Dad's turn to tell a story. This time, Lain opens by saying, "Are you really my dad?" Dad does not answer.
Looks like my dad to me.
And then Dad goes off on his own philosophical rant. He says it may be that what flows through the wired isn't merely electrical information. If phones and electricity created the wired, then they create another world at that moment. In the real world, God only exists as a concept, but in the wired there could be a godlike entity with power that is only written of in myths. And then Lain says, if that's true, then I might have met this God, which is a thing to say to someone.
Oh yeah, I
It's
guess
like-
I have seen God.
Like, yeah, if God exists, then I might have met him.
Oh
At
shit, that was
Starbucks.
God! Oh! That makes sense now.
Yeah, I helped God find his lost dog.
I do want everybody to know that thus far, you cannot pet the dog in Serial Experiments Lain.
Honestly, really breaks the immersion. Unlike, the dissociation or the people being in more places than one.
Or the shadows that bleed. Yeah, that's fine. Or the trains that are metaphor for trains. We haven't seen any of those this episode yet, by the way.
Dad caps this scene off by saying that God could affect the real world through prophecies. And then we cut to Mika coming home. She is in a panic, breathing very heavily, collapses into tears, and then looks up and sees another Mika that's already home.
The first time I saw this, it was genuinely unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
This scene is horrifying.
Yeah.
Didn't like
Both
it.
of them look really confused about what's even happening. Lain walks up, asks other Mika what's going on. Door Mika is no longer there, and other Mika says, "Don't worry about it, Lain," and walks away.
That's Jeff's cat's
And
phrase.
then
You can't do that.
And then Lain looks at the door, sees a ghostly apparition of Mika screaming, and the apparition slowly vanishes.
I love unedited footage of a bear.
It does have that exact energy.
Mm-hmm.
This is super creepy. And I hesitate to do this because I'm not sure how easily I could get this video into the podcast, especially because I don't even really know who to credit for it. But around the time I was watching this, I saw a parody of this scene on Tumblr. It's very short, so I say we all take a second to watch this.
別に何でもないよ。
I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know what was gonna happen.
It's very good.
It's fucking
Alright.
Scooby fucking Doo.
I just feel like we all could have used that.
Yeah.
Lain then goes back to her room. We get another shot of just an absurd amount of computers.
Yeah, no, the computers have just enveloped this room by this point.
This is now the final boss of a cyberpunk game. As Lain
And
gets
far
online,
fewer glitches.
she says, "Who is it today?" And the episode ends. So I want to start off by saying this is probably one of the most brutal episodes of Lain.
Yeah, not a big fan.
I don't know if it's the most brutal, but Mika goes through a lot of shit this episode.
Yeah, including ego
And-
death, apparently.
Yeah, and there's no real reprieve from it.
Just like real life. I've heard through the grapevine that episode 7 is where most people just say, I'm good. So I'm looking forward to that one.
We're so
Yeah, this
close.
This was the episode that, like, when I it was the first one that really just made me feel super uncomfortable and scared.
Mhm.
So at least one episode, or at least 1 week plus until we get to that, I guess.
Yeah, apparently, according to that grapevine, that episode, which is titled "Society," is which we live in. By the way, folks, we live in one of those. Is the one where a lot of people just go, "I'm good. I don't need to finish this," and check out of Serial Experiments Lain. So, looking forward to that one.
normally I don't have a very good answer for what any given episode is about, because what the fuck is even happening? But I feel like I have a decent theory together for this episode.
Go on.
But before I share it, does anybody else have a theory for this episode they'd like to share?
Yes.
Yes, kind of.
Al,
I got nothing outside of ego death, so yeah, everybody else go on.
Alice, you go first because mine's a general one.
So, I have been saying pretty consistently that I feel like what is happening to Lain is a kind of apotheosis. That her interaction with technology is allowing her to do that. And I think this is where Lain is coming into her power as what she is, understanding what she is, or about to understand, and is playing. From our perspective, this is horrifying. From the perspective of Lain, the sort of cyber godhead, she's just playing. The same way that it would be terrifying for one of us to be picked up by a giant child, but to the giant child, we are playthings. It
would be fucked up if we learned we were actually in The Sims.
Yeah, exactly. It would be fucked up to learn you're actually The Sims. Like, I'm not sure exactly, but I feel that the version of her sister that was afraid is not entirely real. It may have been real at one point, but somewhere along the way, it becomes a simulation, a possibility that Lain either... I don't think she consciously creates it, she subconsciously creates it. It just happens to exist because of Lain playing in The Wired, and its existence is temporary and terrifying. And once that meeting happens, it's just like a dream. It just disappears.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me when I'm being serious about listening to what other people suggest. Which is that it really is like Lain has kind of become this ascended being, or was already an ascended being and didn't realize it and has awoken to that reality. And now she's just trying to, figure out her powers and test what she can do. It's like when you open up the code, and you start typing in cheat codes and commands into the video game just to see what you can do, right? When you got that administrator panel open, let's see what kind of horse shit we can get up to. It's like that, but bigger, right? It's like when they gave me mod privileges on the forums I moderate, and I looked at all these buttons and I was like, what does this do? And then I decided to make a post in the year 2035, and it broke the forums for 3 hours. So yeah.
Alright, and what was your...
Oh, so my silly suggestion. So as I said before, and I'll say again, I'll just probably say it every time. A Serial Experiments Lain is a slice of life anime. That means every episode has an important moral lesson to teach us about, I don't know, not doing drugs and saving ourselves from marriage and things of that nature. So this one is about the importance of being devoted to your family and caring about your family members and the follies therein of not doing those things. And let's completely disregard the fact that our parents and families can be abusive towards us and that they are not entitled to anything from... Oh shit, I started being serious there for a moment. Yeah, it's very important to stay loyal and devoted and care about your family members, and the woe be to anybody who does not do those things, even if their family is terrible. Y'all, for real though, if your family is bad, fuck them. You don't owe them shit. But yeah, that is the moral of this slice of life anime, is to give a shit about your family even if they are terrible.
Everywhere you look, everywhere you go, fulfill the prophecy.
Oh, and if they're not not even real, and also perhaps just you, right? Like sock puppeting yourself. We could be going a million. That's where I'm at now. No joke. This is just Lane's, like, and a billion sock puppets. Right?
Well, I think that's what the storytime segments are trying to disprove. Because first we have the scenes with stuff that Lane owns, and they can only tell her things she already knows. And then when we get to her parents, they're telling her things that she doesn't know. So they have to be separate intelligences from her.
Or so you think. Like, I'm not convinced.
The my explanation for at least the latter half of this episode is we learned about something just before Mika really starts getting in the shit. Because it starts off as a normal day in Mika's life, but things don't go really badly until after we learn that there has been a rash of spam email. I think Mika's breakdown is supposed to be a metaphor for spam email.
She's getting what's it called, like 404, like she's getting like hammered. DDoS. Yeah, she's getting DDoS. She just isn't even real. She's just getting DDoS out of existence. Oh, poor Mika.
I think the point that the episode is trying to make is that it's really weird that we tolerate spam in email form, because if it was in any other format, it would make us lose our minds.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that a lot. I was just thinking, like, if she was Miku, pop idol, Vocaloid star Hatsune Miku, she would just be able to power through this and smite those spammers. But she's not. She's Mika for a reason.
Take the dick pills, Mika.
I can't help but think about, like a lot of spam is just terribly written garbage, and it's kind of funny. But, like, some of it is genuinely kind of disturbing. And you're right, we just sort of, like, it's all just might as well be nothing to us.
That's weird.
Oh yeah, somebody's just sending me a message about how I'm gonna be murdered by a girl or whatever.
Whoa.
Fine.
Some of those old chain emails were creepy as hell, or super fucked up in other ways, and we just kind of ignored them. Like our whole
That's
cohort
a creative
did.
use for entrails, I guess.
Yeah, I remember, like, back in the, like, there was some real artistry and actual skillful writing to some of those. Like, there's just a story of, the well gremlin lesbian who, and I'm like, oh, you have my attention, do go on. And it, like, goes on for, like, several paragraphs about how if you do not forward this email to 10 people, the well gremlin lesbian will do things to you. And I'm like, I'm definitely not forwarding this email. Come get me, because I'm gay. But, yeah, I remember, like, some of those were just really good, like, high effort shitpost. Why?
And if you're a big baby like me, they didn't even have to be very well written. I still, like, instinctively look away from mirrors because I was terrified of a fucking Bloody Mary chain comment I read on YouTube 10 years ago.
Wow.
Actually, no, it would have been like 18 years ago.
Are you the one who showed us the XKCD comic of the dude saying Bloody Mary into a mirror and like facing it towards another mirror and then like walking?
In between two mirrors, and then there's just an endless void of Bloody Mary.
Yes.
That one rules.
If you're afraid of chain emails, just do a jab email. Might not do as much damage, but hey, it interrupts. That's very important.
I teched that throw. Okay. Yeah. I had like a serious message, but that is no, for real. Like, think about, like, in real life. Like, even on social media, some jackass, fucking quote tweets you saying a dumb thing, and you get hammered, and they have like 1 billion followers, and you get hammered by a couple thousand people for a few hours. You're just exhausted by the end of the day, right? Like, that's what we're talking. Like, in real life, you wouldn't just that kind of shit would just ruin you.
I feel like this, maybe not specifically this, but something akin to this for the time period it was made in will just end up being a different episode, honestly.
I just think, like, a handful of chuckle fucks relentlessly assailing you for several months nonstop on end would probably just wreck you as a person, and you might do something dumb, like fall asleep for 20 hours straight and drink like a gallon of rum and fall asleep when you're supposed to record a podcast episode with your best friends. not that I'm speaking from any place of like
I reiterate, welcome to Jenner's vlog.
relatability here.
Yes, the last thing I wanted to say, the last little piece of this puzzle is that this is one of the few theories I could come up with that explains what the other Mika is. The other Mika is a new email account, which is why she is like weird and distant to Lain, because she's brand new and doesn't have all of the doesn't have the same address book as the old account.
She didn't import her contacts over? It's rude.
I mean, she
It was
might have imported
1998, it
Mom,
was
but
probably
what
a lot
difference
harder
is that
back
going to
then.
make?
Yeah, it was pretty hard back then. You basically had to write down the names of all, like, the usernames of all the people that you associated with, because there was no other way to keep them back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Else. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'll be better eventually. I can't not be. What is your thoughts as the foremost Alex expert on how Alice? Wow, can I say the name correctly, please? Is doing lately?
Well, she's not doing a lot, but I feel that the little that she does is still important for good Alice representation. So I'm going to give her a 7. Have a holding action.
7 on a scale of what? Like, what are we, on a scale of 10?
1 to 10, yeah.
Okay, a 7 on so far. Okay, cool. I still believe in her. I believe we can get a 10 out of 10 Alice any day now. We already have one here on our podcast. Aw, see that? I threw that compliment at her. It's so casual.
Yeah, what this helped me realize was what episode 4 was trying to explain through its weird plot. Basically, the game of Phantoma is talking about how using the same word for vastly different things can cause so many problems. Because Phantoma is a high-energy player versus player FPS with implications on the real world. It's kind of implied that if you get shot in that game, you will get hurt in real life. And then there's the game of tag that the children are playing, which is still technically player versus player, but there's not really a versus element to it. There's no harm intended and there's no harm caused. But by calling them both games, the knights are able to connect them, and when these two wildly different games are treated the same way, it causes problems, and both people, the people who play the FPS and the people who play tag, are severely hurt by being grouped together when they probably shouldn't have been grouped together.
Hear that, gamers?
Excuse me, I'm a gamer because I lead many lives, in both FPS and tag, thank you very much.
I do like how Lain plays with... It's funny how Lain plays with linguistic confusion while also managing to have scripts that have almost no talking in them.
It's impressive.
Yeah. You think the dubbing office was just like, oh, thank God. And they got the scripts for these, and it's like 7 words each.
Yeah.
This one's gonna be cheap.
Yeah, I'm a gamer, gay, and making every mistake.
You didn't go for the good at making extremely hot girls.
Ah, fuck!
Joke.
That's how fucking tired I am.
And now that I have set Jenner to the next dimension, does anybody else have anything else they want to say before I move into the ending bits?
I already
Thoughts
did
do I
the
have?
first part of my ending bit already. I did want to say that I was doing research on a completely unrelated thing today, and I found out that there's a deity named Nemesis, and she's really cool. I'm gonna link her later. She has nothing to do with anything right now, any more than that episode of The Wire had anything to do with anything. That's all.
Yeah, if this were a Fire Emblem 3 Houses podcast, it'd be a different story.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's see. Okay, so one thing I wanted to note is that this episode we seem to get another, more shy Lain, She's not as bold. It's especially noticeable when she's with her friends, as she was in the previous episode. And I thought that was fairly significant. The people turning into shadow blobs wasn't her thing in this episode, though, so I think it's interesting that she seems to be switching a bit more, which I guess just shows that, like, it wasn't a permanent switch by, installing whatever it was that was important at the time before everything else got
The
installed.
processor.
Yeah, before everything else got installed and Lane's room just becomes the computer cave. It is more computer than room. But yeah, it seems like she can switch because she was very passive throughout the entire episode. And I guess just the main thing I draw from the episode itself is, like, what Mika had to go through seems to be fairly in line with Lane's experience. That's sort of how her world goes at times. Except to anybody who's not Lain, it's utterly horrifying.
Yeah.
No one can experience what Lain does in the way that she does, because, like, it goes along with what we've been talking about, the way that, like, the whole, like, people wear the mask thing, you are different around different people, which is, I think, in a way, kind of interesting that that's sort of, to me at least, the default Lain, now that I think about it. Just, like, that is the Lain we first saw, and it is the Lain that actually doesn't interact with people much. In fact, it kind of filters people out. And Mika just seems to get that experience in this episode. Just the default Lain. There is nobody here who is interacting with anybody else. I'm alone. And for Mika, it is the worst. And then, of course, there's all the prophecy stuff, which parallels what Lain is curious about. But whereas Lane's just asking questions, for Mika, it's just fucking, hey, here's a tissue with red letters that says fulfill the prophecy. Here's this wall that's just filled with that phrase. Here's your coffee, says fulfill the prophecy.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it reminded me. I wanted to say that the actual spam message is not the worst thing that Mika has encountered that day. The message on the back of the notepads, the tissues, is way worse, way creepier, way more disturbing. But she just brushes that off because it's one message. She can just deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's when she gets the same stuff over and over again in increasingly improbable ways that she can't handle it.
Yeah, and I guess, thinking about that, like, that's also a Lain thing, where, like, one innocuous thing just sort of becomes all-consuming.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the moral of the story is, don't be Lain, it's horrifying.
On the second thought, let's not be late.
Yeah. So, about fulfilling the prophecy. So, The Prophecy is a 1995 American fantasy thriller film starring Christopher Walken, Elias Koteas, and Virginia Madsen.
Oh my
Eric
God.
Stoltz, and it has Viggo Mortensen in it as well. And it was written and directed by Gregory Wyden. And this is his feature directorial debut.
A chair is a raised surface supported by a back and four legs.
But no, okay, but for real...
When it has wheels,
hey,
it is a wheelchair.
Hey. For real, though, this is actually a good movie. I recommend it. I liked it a lot. And why is the Archangel Gabriel always so hot in every movie somebody shows up in and is playing the Archangel Gabriel? That's basically all I have to say. This movie may not have aged well since when I first watched it in 1996, but it was good when I watched it in 1996. That is all. I wonder what its Rotten Tomato score is. I'll look it up later. Bye, folks.
It was not all.
For some reason, even though you said Christopher Walken, I thought you said 1955, and my mind just completely accepted both of those as being true.
Yeah, Christopher Walken, he's eternal.
Christopher Walken...
Is he not?
Is some kind of, like, fucking, like, lich.
Have you seen a young Christopher Walken?
Yeah, he's a I don't think a young Christopher Walken exists. He's a demi-lich. He was born, like, he just came into existence as he is.
Is that why he talks like that? The
Yes.
resurrection process didn't work quite right.
Yes. Yes.
All his souls are trying to kill him in between every word, and that's why he keeps pausing.
See,
Oh, is that why that happens? Dang, I didn't know. That's good to know for myself.
I'm gonna check the Rotten Tomatoes of this while you all keep talking, and I'm gonna stop talking about things that don't fucking matter.
Anyways, I think I'm ready to move on to our ending bit. Unless somebody has something they'd like to say about this episode.
I think I end every episode saying this, but I'm just gonna say it now because I'm tired and I'm worried I'll forget. I think we should all love Lain, and I'm here to love Lain.
Now it's time for that part of every episode where I ask, what is the plot? I feel like I should probably clarify. I am not asking about like what happens in this episode. I'm asking more, where do you think the show is headed, or what do you think could happen on next week's episode?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Alice, you have this down to a science. You're very consistent on your answers.
I'm going to mix it up a little bit, actually. In that I
Alright.
think that I want to see more about the prophecy next episode, but I will not see more about it. I have a very strong feeling that the idea of prophecy and causation is going to get put on the back burner until the next episode after that one, or beyond. And the next one is probably not going to give us any very direct answers about that. Because, like many things, Lain does not like to answer or give any kind of detail about its questions until later.
Yeah, like the only way to understand Lane is to watch all of it and then ask somebody else what the hell just happened. Much
hopefully
like
they know.
how we don't know who created the first pair of tongs, we do not know who first understood Lane, because the information just keeps getting passed down, and we can't trace it back.
I created the first pair of tongs.
It was Thomas Tong, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually a part of Judaism. I forget which holy text covers this, but God created the first pair of tongs because a pair of tongs is used in the process of making tongs. So only God could have made the first pair. Fafnir, what do you think is happening in Serial Experiments Lane? And what do you think will happen in the next few episodes?
Alright, so, like, Lain herself, and I guess her dad, usually all about that Wired, Lain is of the Wired. She's talking about people being connected. A lot of the story is about the Wired, but this seems to be a story about somebody who isn't prepared. Because Mika has to experience Lane's world, which, is the Wired, it seems. Lane's just the fucking internet. And, like, she's not ready for this. Like, she is physically less connected from everybody. People just turn into shadow blobs. And she just has a day that is rightfully panic attack inducing. And it just ends with her seeing herself and then, again, going through ego death, I guess. We'll have to see what happens in the next episode, but I feel like the show's just going to carry on without acknowledging that. This is just Mika now. This new Mika has replaced the old one. But
Okay.
yeah, what Mika's great, fantastic experience with The Wired means in the long run, though, I don't know, because I think I need to see more people's interaction with it.
Because awful, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day.
Mm-hmm. I think I already mentioned mine, right? About, like, give a fuck about your family, but... Okay.
Yeah, you did part of it at least. Do you have anything else to
here's
say?
my I guess idea for what's going on in Lain so far. Again, slice of life. Still think this is about care about your family, but also I've decided that this is a important moral tale about pirating things online. You would not download a car. Here's what happens when you download that car, kids. Don't do it.
You immediately die.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you went for piracy, which didn't happen in the episode, and not premarital sex, which did happen in the
Yep.
episode.
Yep.
I guess, yeah, that
We're
would make
sex positive
that's
here.
too plausible.
We're also piracy
Mika
positive
had
here,
sex and then
but
this happened.
maybe she got a virus from that sex that she had.
Alright, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. It's my own fault for mentioning the sex scene again.
What here's my next week, y'all. I'm sure I will not sleep through it again, and we will keep going, and we will get there. We will get to the end of Serial Experiments Lain, and then this will all make sense. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that does it for this week.
I
Tune
just
in next week to see us cover episode 6.
Yep, I just looked it up, and The Prophecy has a 43% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 64% audience score. The critics' consensus is that The Prophecy has its moments, but a fantasy thriller starring Christopher Walken as a murderous angel should be a good deal more engaging than this. There you go.
Everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.